Welcome or welcome back. This is Decaf-Math, ASMR. I hope that you're doing well. Today we are going to continue on with some basics. We're going to evaluate or find the value of different algebraic expressions when we're given the values of certain variables. You'll see what I mean. So I've seemed to have gotten some positive feedback for our basics series. I really enjoy interacting with you, and I want to make sure that we don't forget all of our basics here over the summer. So I do know that there are several of you who I've interacted with who enjoy my more advanced videos as well. For me, I guess by that I mean anything, I would say, past differential equations. So thank you for your patience with those as well. I'm just jumping around a lot. I think I started with more calculus videos, but I do want to go into actual more advanced math, but I also want to go into more basic math as well. So we'll just keep enjoying yourself here, and I hope that whether you use this to review or simply to relax, that you feel loved and blessed in some way. Plus, there's no rush here and no pressure, so we'll just take our time. So anyway, for today, we are going to look at 3 variables, and I'm going to give you their values. So in general, in algebra, variables are letters or symbols that represent an unknown value. So if we have x in general, it just means x is something, I don't know what it is, but whatever that is, I might have an expression with it, or an equation, or some information about x. And then a lot of algebra is about solving for x or doing something else, manipulating that variable. But for this exercise, this is more towards pre-algebra. We are going to practice using variables and simplifying expressions. So in this case, I am telling you x equals 2. So x is no longer really a variable. It is a variable, but in this case, it has a known value. X is equal to 2 because I'm telling you so. Same thing for y. It no longer varies. So the symbol y itself is a variable, but I'm telling you that it is equal to 3. So y equals 3. And same thing for z. Z is equal to -1 for this exercise. And I'm writing z like this. You might see this commonly in math classes, maybe or maybe not where you're from, but this just helps us distinguish that it's actually a z or z, what have you, rather than it kind of looking like this. It might be kind of confusing, so I think it's a good habit. Okay, so I have these 3 values and 3 variables, and the point of this exercise for today is to practice reading out algebraic expressions and kind of getting used to the symbols and what to do. So we're just going to take this step by step, and let's look at the first one. So the problem might be something like, given these 3 values, evaluate or simplify. It's not really going to be simplify, it's probably going to be evaluate x plus y, or find find the value of x plus y. Okay, so the first thing is math is a language, right? So I just read that out loud, x plus y, but it is up to you to figure out what this means. So I'm sure this is something you could do, right? X plus y, x plus y. So first, understanding what the symbols mean here. So now we are just adding x and y together. So here, this is an algebraic expression. There's no equal sign. It doesn't really mean anything. It just means whatever x is and whatever y is, we're going to add them together. In this case, I'm given that x equals 2 and that y equals 3. So if we were to evaluate it here with these particular values, we would say 2 plus 3. 2 plus 3, which is 5. 5. So our answer for this one would be 5. So in general, x plus y varies in itself if we're not given any values and we're just given that x and y are variables. This value varies. But once I said x equals 2 and y equals 3, then x plus y is going to equal 5. 2 plus 3 equals 5. Okay, very good. Okay, let's try another one. How about this? Like this. So if I say evaluate this, given this information here, what is this? This reads 2x. So x is a variable in general, but I'm given x is 2 here. This means 2x, so 2 times x. When I have a number squished together right next to a variable like this, it's multiplication, right? And we've talked about this before. In algebra, we start just squishing them next to each other because if I wrote 2 times x, well, for one, that gets really confusing, but also we're not doing arithmetic anymore, so we no longer need to write multiplication like that. So we just squish together and say 2x, which means 2 times x, and in this case, x equals 2. So we're going to do 2 times 2, which is 4. Indeed. So in this case, 2x will equal 4. So it's all about understanding what the expression is saying or asking. Okay, so take your time with the symbols. I think at first it's really just getting used to that, and then all you have to do is plug in these values. And then also in this case, because there's a negative, just be careful of that and be careful of order of operations. So let's try this one. So now we're going to have a few steps. So I think it helps to read it out loud. In this case, we're going to try and evaluate x squared minus y. X raised to the second power, which is x squared minus y. Here we'll want to do the order of operations. So you can think of it as whatever x is, I'm going to square that number, and then I'm going to subtract whatever y is. So now it doesn't matter if x and y are positive or negative. Just remember to keep this order of operations and put in parentheses if needed, so that you don't get confused with, let's say, if we subtract y, but y happens to be negative. You can just proceed with the actual calculation part there. But we have whatever x is, we square it, and then we subtract whatever y is. So in this case, we'll check x equals 2. So I'm going to do 2, and I'm going to square that, and then I'm going to subtract y, which is 3. So 2 squared is 2 times itself. So 2 times 2 is 4. So this is 4, and then minus 3. And 4 minus 3 equals 1. So in this case, this is equal to 1. And again, just make sure you read the instructions for the problem. In general, this is a variable. Well, each of these are variables. This is an algebraic expression, but the question will be something like evaluate this expression given these variables. So for this one, we'll get 1, 1. Okay, excellent. So you can kind of just make up your own types of questions here as well, just to get practice in. So let's try out this next one. Let's look at this. It's very interesting. So if I were to read this out loud, I see 3z squared. 3z squared. So this means I take whatever z value I'm given. In this case, it's -1. And I'm going to square that. And then I'm going to multiply by 3. Remember, with numbers and variable parts, this is a coefficient. It means multiplication. But this is where it gets a little confusing, I think. So this z squared part goes together. So you square the z part first, and then you multiply by 3. And this is based off of our order of operations, PEMDAS or BEDMAS. So you do the exponents first before you do all the rest, and in this case before multiplication. So you do z squared first and then multiply by 3. So you don't always go from left to right. You wouldn't do 3 times z and then square that. So just to be clear, it's not the same as this. Okay, so you put parentheses if it were an ambiguous case, but here it is written like this, and so this would definitively be z squared first and then multiply by 3. So in this case, z is -1, which is even more confusing, I think, so it's good to just write this step by step. So you would do 3 times -1 squared, because z just happens to be -1. No big deal, just keep it together as one number, and I square that. So -1 squared is going to be +1. This is +1 because I just do -1 times itself, so -1 times -1 is +1. So we do 3 times 1, which is 3. So let me know if you want to go back through this at all, but hopefully this is making it very clear for you. When in doubt, just put in the parentheses to emphasize that that is z. Keep it in its own unit, and then you square that, okay? So I'm just trying to give you a little roadmap here. I have no idea what your understanding of math is, if you're comfortable with positives, negatives, squaring, any of that. So just take this for what it is. It's just a pattern in general, and then adapt it to what you feel comfortable with, okay? So this one would be 3, and it would be a +3. Don't forget about squaring negative numbers and how that gives you a positive number. So next, we have this. So take a look at this one. Let me know what you think. So here it reads X, Y, Z, but we're not just listing out our alphabet here. In algebra, this is going to be X times Y times Z. Again, with the squishing of these different elements right next to each other implies multiplication. So this just means I'm going to take X and multiply it by Y and multiply it by Z. Take this step by step, and in this case, we're just going to do X is 2, Y is 3, no problems there, and then times, and then Z is -1. So I'm going to do times in parentheses -1. Make sure you put the parentheses here, because if I didn't and I just put this, well, that just looks kind of weird, right? Looks like some kind of new symbol, but we're doing one operation at a time, so we just happen to be multiplying a negative number. This looks like some kind of Morse code or something. So we definitely want to put parentheses to show that -1 is a number in itself. It's one element. We're going to do 3 times that, or this whole part. So 2 times 3 is +6, multiplied by -1, and that would be -6. So just make sure you're comfortable with multiplying and dividing, or adding and subtracting with negative numbers. In this case, we have a positive times a negative, so those are different signs. So the answer is going to be negative, and then 6 times 1 is 6. So this is going to be -6. Of course, as you get practice, you can nearly do this in your head. 2 times 3 times -1, -6. No problem there. Very good. So now let's do this. Give you a second to kind of think about this and how to read it out loud to yourself. So this is xy minus 3z. So a lot of this is about breaking down the order of operations here. So this is x times y. Again, the squishing together, so x times y. Then we have minus, and then 3 times z, 3z, right? So x times y is 2 times 3 minus 3 times, and then z is -1. So I know this might be where it gets a little confusing to write out, but if you remember that it's this product minus this product, that might help if you want to break it down first. But if you have to write it across like this, remember that multiplication comes first before subtraction in this case. PEMDAS or BEDMAS. Either way, we have multiplication and division coming before addition and subtraction. So here, multiplication first. 2 times 3 is 6. And then we have minus, and then we would have 3 times -1, which is 3z, which is -3. 3 times -1 is -3, because 3 is positive and -1 is negative, so they have different signs. So it's negative, and then 3 times 1 is 3. But we just happen to be subtracting here, so we have 6 minus -3. So that would be 6 plus 3. Either you just get familiar with that notation, negative is positive, or you can think of it as like a -1 times -3. So if you wanted to think of this as -3 times -1, you could do +3, but I think that gets a little confusing with different expressions, so it's probably better to just consider this first, because you can leave the negative as an actual subtraction, like as an actual minus operation. But it's up to you how you want to think about this, as long as you take it step by step. So 6 minus -3 is 6 plus 3, which is +9. Excellent. Nicely done. So this one I know has a lot to it, but don't forget order of operations and put parentheses where you need to. And if this were negative, for instance, you just carry it on as usual when you do the evaluation. Let's do one last one. And this is quite a bit to write out, but again, if you just follow what we said, I think you will be just fine, as long as you're familiar with the square root symbol. But if not, no worries. Here we have this big mess, and it reads negative square root of x squared plus y minus 2z. So we just take bit by bit, and here we're going to do x squared, so the exponent first, plus y, and then do minus 2z. 2z. And then whatever this whole thing is, I'm going to take the square root of that. And then I have a negative in front. Okay, so just one step at a time. X squared, so we have 2. So 2 squared plus y minus 2. And then negative 1. And that's what I like to do first, is just plug in the numbers and put parentheses everywhere where it's unclear. And then, of course, we're still going to do the square root of this whole thing and then a negative. We're just going to keep evaluating bit by bit. So 2 squared is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Plus 3. And then we have the negative 2 times negative 1, or the minus negative 2, however you want to think of that. But that is going to be, well, let's just really take it one step at a time here. So 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, minus 2. And then again, we're just copying the square root, the negative. So then we have 4 plus 3 is 7, minus 2 is plus 2, square root, negative. So 7 plus 2 is 9. And that's that. So we have negative square root of 9. The square root of 9 is definitively positive 3. So this is, the answer is negative 3. For the totally simplified part. So by that I mean this is the negative root 9. It's the negative square root of 9. Not to be confused with if I had a statement that said like x squared equals 9, then x can equal 3 or negative 3. But in this case, this square root part, the square root of 9 is positive 3, and then with the negative in front is negative 3. So that is our answer for this one. I think this one is cute, and it doesn't always work out where the inner part is a perfect square, but in this case I wanted it to work out nicely, so I just made that up. So I hope that helps build some confidence here, and I hope that it was a fun little exercise to see written out regardless. But really, when you're given an algebraic expression and specific values, just literally plug in the values for the parts that you need, and I think it really helps to read it out loud so that you can get used to the order of operations. As you learn more algebra, and again in pre-calculus, you start to study these symbols as functions. So that's kind of, that intuition does build on itself. But for instance, you can look at this as a square root function or a composition of functions. So that kind of also gives you a hint toward how you would calculate this. So it's just a negative square root of stuff, where stuff happens to be this thing squared plus this thing minus 2, this thing. So that's why you kind of simplify this inner part first, and then you take the square root of all of that, and then you put the negative in front. So it's like a negative square root parent function is kind of the word I'm getting at. Or in this case, it's the parent function is like something squared. So it's x squared in this case, or negative 2z, that kind of thing. So just getting some intuition with that, but otherwise just go ahead and plug in all your given constants for the different variables and take your time with that. I think most commonly for this stuff, I would say it's order of operations, and then just being careful with your addition and subtraction if you have negative numbers. If you're getting a wrong answer, sometimes you're just missing parentheses, or you're squaring the wrong part first. But I believe if you take your time and you do it step by step, you can absolutely nail this concept. So let's get it. If you are asleep right now, I'm wishing you sweet, sweet mathy dreams. If you're going to continue on with the rest of your day, I hope it's a good one. Thanks for hanging out with me, by the way. It's been really fun getting to hear about about your experiences with math and also what level you're most interested in. Just gonna keep jumping around and enjoying it around here, but I have to say it's all about you that make this whole